hope that these past few days of Spanish have gone well for you. Today's going to be a little bit different, this being assigned for Wednesday. What you see here on the screen is just a picture I took of an activity that we're going to work through together. It's on page 22 of your textbook. For the first part, you can either just look here on the screen and follow along with me, or it might be easier for you to have your book open again to page 22. You'll see here at the top underneath the activity heading, it says Paso Uno. Paso means step. So this is step 1 of the activity. And then there is Paso Dos and Paso Tres, which I did not take a picture of. You will see those on page 22. And ultimately, we're going to go through all of that. So for activity 121 here, it says Noemi, uno puertorriqueña. That's the heading. And this word should look familiar to you. Earlier this week, we looked at pages 20 and 21, dealing with adjectives of nationality, and you had some activities to do surrounding that. So hopefully, based on that work, this is letting you know where Noemi is from. She is from Puerto Rico. She is a Puerto Rican. And we have the feminine form here of that adjective. Noemi, una puertorriqueña. And all that Paso Uno is telling us to do is read the following paragraphs about her. Let me see. I'm going to hide this. There we go. So you can see we have a short reading. A number of the words are in italics and have the small little numbers besides them. And we've seen that earlier on in the chapter, throughout the chapter. That lets you know that these are words that are completely new to us, and they are giving us the definitions. If you have your book open to page 22, you can see the definitions there at the bottom of the page. As we read this, I will help you with the translations as well. Also in this reading, there are some words that we technically have not learned. They are not part of chapter 1 vocabulary, but they're cognates. And so as we're reading along, you're going to know what they mean. The first example would be right here in the first line, capital. That's an exact cognate, even though we're not going to pronounce it capital. I bet when you saw the word capital in Spanish, you knew that's what it meant. On the second line, we have another cognate that, again, is not included in the chapter 1 vocabulary that you would have studied, but I bet when you look at this word, where my mouse is circling, you know what that means. Personas. Literally persons, right? People. So you'll run into that in these sentences as well. So between the words that we do know, words that we don't know but that are cognates, and words that we don't know but that they define for us, we're going to figure out what these paragraphs are saying. The first thing we're going to do together to read the following paragraphs, I'm going to read them, and I want you to follow along. Again, either looking at the words on the screen, truly following along with me, looking word by word as I'm reading, or in your textbook. I'm going to read very slowly so you can follow along word for word and think about the pronunciation that I'm using and connect it to the words that you are seeing. I'm going to read it one time without stopping, and then we'll go back through and pull out the definitions that we need, and then we'll read it again. So first time through, starting at me llamo, follow along. Here we go. Me llamo Noemi. Soy puertorriqueña. Soy de San Juan, la capital de Puerto Rico. Somos 6 personas en mi familia. Mi papá se llama Omar. Es contador. Mi mamá se llama Ruth. Ella es secretaria. Mi hermano se llama Jonathan. tiene 18 años. Tengo 2 hermanas menores que se llaman Débora y Rebeca. Débora tiene 15 años y Rebeca tiene 12 años. Son simpáticas. Durante el día, nosotros, los hijos, estamos en la escuela y mis padres están en la oficina. Al mediodía, toda la familia está en casa para el almuerzo. Por la noche, tenemos un tiempo devocional a las 8 antes de acostarnos. All right, so hopefully, again, you were able to follow along. The emphasis not on understanding everything, but just going word by word as I was reading. Let's look at some of these definitions here. Contador is an accountant. So someone is an accountant. You have lots of forms of ser in this. Hopefully you noticed that right off the bat. Soy. And here we have es. She's introducing us to her papa, her dad. And because it's clear who we're talking about, we don't have a subject pronoun in front of es, but it's implied we're saying he. So my dad is named Omar. He is an accountant. The next word that we need to define is hermano, and that means brother. And we're talking about this brother, se llama Jonathan, whose name is Jonathan, Jonathan. And this whole next sentence they translate for us, tiene 18 años. He is 18, that number, which we're going to be learning numbers in chapter 2. 18, he is 18 years old. The next word, tengo, means I have. Hermano, which was number 24, the word they defined for us, means brother. So maybe you can kind of think what hermana might be. Hermana is sister. So she's saying, I have 2, and then menores, another word they define for us, is younger, 2 younger sisters that she's introducing to us. The next line, they give us some more numbers so that we know what they mean. 15 means 15. 12, not to be confused with dos, which is 2, but 12 means 12, so it's related. And then they define this adjective, simpáticas. It kind of looks like sympathetic, and it's actually related to that English word, but in a way that we don't really use the word sympathetic anymore. But simpáticas, the way it's used in Spanish is just to mean nice. They're very nice. And you can tell who they're talking about, or who she's talking about, rather, because the form of this adjective is feminine and plural. So she is describing these 2 sisters. They're very nice. The next line, number 31, hijos, means children. In this sense, it's not children like little kids children. It's children in the sense of your relation in the family, the kids in the family, even though you have an 18-year-old, but they're the sons and daughters. They're the children. Number 32, estamos, means we are. So it's connected to nosotros. It's another form of to be. So are. Number 33, padres, in this instance means parents, mom and dad, my parents. Están, are. Here we have what I'm hoping is a cognate for you, oficina. I'm not going to tell you what it means right now. We will define it after we go through this a second time. But be on the lookout using context and what we're talking about and who we're talking about. See if you can figure out what oficina might mean. Number 35, this word means it doesn't mean mediodía. The word mediodía means noon, literally midday. En casa, number 36, en casa. That phrase means to be at home, literally in-house. We would say at home. Number 37, almuerzo. Almuerzo means lunch. So para el almuerzo, for lunch. Number 38, tenemos, means we have. We have. And then the last phrase, number 39, this whole phrase, antes de acostarnos, means before going to bed, before we go to bed. So that kind of helps just knowing what some of those are. Again, you've got that all in front of you if you have your book open. I'm going to read this again, and I want you to follow along a second time. If you want to try to read it out loud along with me, that is fine too, since you've heard it once. But you don't have to. But what I do want you doing is reading along with me in the sense of you're looking at the words. I'm going to read it a little bit faster, still slowly, but a little bit faster. Keep up with me the best that you can. Follow along with each word. Me llamo Noemí. Soy puertorriqueña. Soy de San Juan, la capital de Puerto Rico. Somos 6 personas en mi familia. Mi papá se llama Omar. Es contador. Mi mamá se llama Ruth. Ella es secretaria. Mi hermano se llama Jonathan. Tiene 18 años. Tengo 2 hermanas menores que se llaman Débora y Rebeca. Débora tiene 15 años y Rebeca tiene 12 años. Son simpáticas. Durante el día, nosotros, los hijos, estamos en la escuela y mis padres están en la oficina. Al mediodía, toda la familia está en casa para el almuerzo. Por la noche, tenemos un tiempo devocional a las 8 antes de acostarnos. All right, third and final time of me reading it. I'm going to read it even a little bit faster, but before that, let's go through and translate this so that you're not thrown off by not knowing what you're reading and you could just focus on the speed and pronunciation. So we start off, me llamo Noemí, right? Me llamo was vocab. My name is Naomi, Noemí. Soy puertorriqueña. I'm Puerto Rican. So here is that form of ser. She has started out by saying, my name is. So we know she's talking about herself. And in addition to that, soy can only refer to yo. So there really isn't much of a reason to put yo in there. And so she left it out. Me llamo Noemí, soy puertorriqueña. Soy de San Juan. Now she's telling us where she's from. My name is Naomi. I'm Puerto Rican. I'm from San Juan, the capital of Puerto Rico. We should know what somos means. It can only agree with one subject pronoun, right? Nosotros. So somos means we are. Literally, this sentence is saying, we are 6 people in my family. In English, we might say, there are 6 people in my family. Same idea. So there's 6 people in my family. Mi papá se llama Omar. My dad is named Omar. He is an accountant. My mom is named, and the Spanish here is Ruth, but that's the Spanish for Ruth. So biblical names typically have a direct Spanish translation. Not every name does. if your name is a kind of a newer name or not as antiquated of a name, it's not going to have a Spanish version per se, but names in the Bible do. There are a few where it's the same, I believe, but so we have Naomi, we have Ruth, right? Ruth. She is a secretary. Ella es secretaria. And we said hermano is brother. Me means my. My brother is named Jonathan. He is 18 years old. I have 2 younger sisters named Deborah and Rebecca. Deborah has 15 years, literally. We would say she is 15 years old. And Rebecca is 12 years old. They are nice. Durante is a word that I wouldn't call it a cognate, and it definitely wasn't vocabulary. So this is an example of a word that, I'm going to tell you what it means, but in real life, if you're reading something or hearing something and you were to hear a word like this that's unfamiliar to you, it isn't critical that you know what this means. So skip it and go on, right? You're still going to get the idea of what Naomi is trying to tell us. Durante means during, but again, you could keep going. You could just skip that. I don't know what that word is. I'm just going to, and it would be fine. And that's a good habit for us to get into. We don't want to stumble over and bog down on the words that we don't know. We want to focus on the words that we do. But again, for this activity, I'm going to tell you what it means, and it means during. So during the day, durante el día, we, the kids, the children, are at school, in the school. We are at school, and don't forget E means and my parents are at the, did you get this one? Office. They're at the office. At noon, the whole family. Again, if you didn't know toda, you could skip it and still know the family, which is definitely a cognate. Was not technically vocab, but when you look at that, hear it, you can make the connection. You don't need to know that the word toda is all or whole. You would still know that you're saying at noon, the family is at home. Right? At noon, the whole family, all of the family is at home for lunch. And a little side note, that is actually a lot more common in Spanish-speaking countries for them to have an extended lunch break where kids, if the school they attend is close enough, kids can come home, mom and dad can come home, and they have a large lunch together, and then everyone kind of goes back and finishes their day. That would mean that school would let out later, but you've had that time in the middle of the day. And then the last sentence, we know noche from buenas noches, right? So in the night or in the evening, we have, that was a word they defined for us, we have a devotional, it's an exact cognate, devocional, a devotional time. Again, you may not even have been able to figure out that tiempo meant time, but let's pretend you skipped it. You know we're talking about a devotional of some sort, right? So in the evening, we have a devotional time at 8 before we go to bed. So she just kind of gave us a little picture into their daily life. I'm going to read this one more time. Follow along. I'm going to pick up the speed, and hopefully it's getting a little bit more familiar to you, and so you can follow along a little bit more easily. So I'm going to follow along once more. Here we go. Me llamo Noemi. Soy puertorriqueña. Soy de San Juan, la capital de Puerto Rico. Somos 6 personas en mi familia. Mi papá se llama Omar. Es contador. Mi mamá se llama Ruth. Ella es secretaria. Mi hermano se llama Jonathan. Tiene 18 años. Tengo 2 hermanas menores que se llaman Débora y Rebeca. Débora tiene 15 años y Rebeca tiene 12 años. Son simpáticas. Durante el día, nosotros, los hijos, estamos en la escuela y mis padres están en la oficina. Al mediodía, toda la familia está en casa para el almuerzo. Por la noche tenemos un tiempo devocional a las 8 antes de acostarnos. All right, that is paso uno, and it's obviously the longest of the steps. For the next two steps, I'm going to type instructions for you in Google Classroom, but as you can probably already see, as you complete step 2, you're going to read the Spanish statements out loud and then say whether each is cierto or falso, true or false, based on what we just read and what we translated together. So there's 4 of those. Is it true or false? Noemí es de Puerto Rico. Number 2, is it true or false? La familia de Noemí es muy pequeña. And they translate that for you. You see the little number there. And again, you've got all this on page 22. It's not on the screen. Number 3, is it true or false? En la familia de Noemí, todos los hijos son niños. And then they translate that. And then number 4, is it true or false? La mamá de Noemí es secretaria.